that one. So, I guess it's the dryer's fault. I'm going to have to blame it on the dryer here. You know, the most common pastime in our nation is watching television. It seems to be the most pastime out of anything. I know there's few programs that I've watched now that I've got older. There's few programs, I've talked about this before, I know. There's just few channels and few things that we watch, especially mainly during the year when sports is not on. I know there's certain things that we watch. And I was flipping through the channels the other day, and man, there's some horrible things on there. There's some things that just were just, I couldn't even imagine. And so now I know why I stay in my little world there. I remember when I was young, as soon as I got off the school bus, I would rush home. Because the bus that I rode, we was the last ones picked up, so we was the first ones dropped off. So we got home kind of early. So I would hurry up and run home, and I would get feed all the animals and the hay, do everything that I had to do, and then I would go and watch TV. And I would watch shows like the Brady Bunch. And Hazel, you remember the show Hazel with the maid? You remember that? And Bonanza? And these shows that I would watch. And the reason I bring these three up is because they all have something in common. The important figures in their shows were servants. Hazel was the maid, she was the servant, the show was about her. The Brady Bunch, Alice, she was the servant, she was one that kind of held everything together. And it's to show how important servanthood is. And the reason I bring that up, and the same is true in a church family. There's nothing more important than the servants that are in the church. We have many examples throughout the Bible of all kinds of different servants. We have many that we could reflect on. And if I would ask everyone this morning, what would be the greatest example of a servant? And I know we would all raise our hands and say Jesus. Because Jesus himself was the greatest servant of all. And if we are to be Christians, the meaning of Christian is to be Christ-like. And if we are to be Christ-like, then that's how we ought to be too. We ought to set the examples of servanthood. He showed that by the greatest example I think that comes to mind right off is washing of the disciples' feet. Instead of a princely robe, he chose a towel. And what that shows us is that servanthood is not jobs, it's a ministry. It's reflecting what Jesus is doing. He did this to show us who we are and who we are to be, because that's who he is. He tells us in Luke chapter 22. Those following, you can go ahead and turn to Luke. In Luke 22, starting in verse 24. Now the disciples, Jesus and the disciples are sitting around a table. And I can just imagine what's going on. They're all talking among themselves, and one's kind of bragging about he's better than the other one, and I've done this and you didn't do this, and I was chosen first and you was chosen last, and I'm sure they had their little discussions going on, and this is what he's told them. He said, when they began to argue among themselves about who would be the greatest among them, Jesus told them, in this world, the kings and great men lord over their people, yet they are called friends of the people. But among you, it will be different. Those who are the greatest among you should take the lowest rank, and the leader should be like a servant. Who is more important, the one who sits at the table or the one who serves? The one who sits at the table, of course, but not here. Not in my kingdom, he says. It's not here. For I am among you as one who serves. See how he's laying it out here? Jesus is telling his followers, his disciples, and he's telling us to lead by service. To lead by the lowest position, what would be considered the lowest position. See, a true servanthood is not dominance, it's humility. Is the point he wants. It's about being humble. Jesus is still giving the example of service today. We think, well, he did all he had to do on earth. He did the greatest service of all, and he died on the cross, but his servanthood did not end there. Jesus is still in service to us today, and a lot of times I don't think we realize that. Even his earthly ministry ended 2,000 plus years ago, whatever. He showed us that true servanthood never ends. As a servant of God, we stay faithful until God says so. It's not our decision to make, is it? It's till God says so. Because this morning, as we speak, Jesus is interceding for us. He is our advocate before God. He continually pleads on our behalf when we fall short. And for me, that's quite often. Unfortunately, it's quite often. Jesus has to stand. This morning, I'm sure he had to stand in for me. We don't think of that as a service, but who is standing? That is a service, isn't it? It doesn't end just because his earthly ministry ended. It did not end there. He is standing, think about it. The creator of the universe is serving the created. You don't see that nowhere else but Christianity, do you? You will not see that anywhere else. You see, but you see, that's the heart of grace. Jesus doesn't serve us because we deserve it. He serves us because he loves us deeply. And we are recipients of his service. Therefore, we ought to see the example and serve back. Look what he tells us in Romans 8. Romans 8:31, a verse that we should all be familiar with. Romans 8:31 through 34. What then shall we say in response to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he also, along with him, graciously give us all things? Who will bring any charge against those who God has chosen? It is God who justifies. Who then is the one who condemns? No one. Christ Jesus, who died, more than that, who was raised to life, is at the right hand of God, and is also interceding for us. It's plain and simple that he shows us servanthood does not end. He's also preparing a place for us. Think about that. When he left, he told his disciples, which he is saying to us, and we've seen it in John 14, 2 through 4, whatever, the last couple of weeks we've talked about it, where he said Jesus is preparing a place for us. And you know, the more I thought about this, and the more I got to thinking, and as I prepared the lesson on hell, and I prepared the lesson on heaven, and then I prepared the lesson on this one, it shows so much in so many different places. You know, how he tells us in Psalms to where, I knew you when you was formed in your mother's womb. I know the very numbers of hairs on your head. There's not a bird that falls to the ground that I don't see it. How much more do I think of you? You know what that means? It's personal. God knows us personally. And therefore, when he goes and prepares a place for me, it's for me. Just like it is for you, because he knows you, and you. And I think he's personally preparing a place for you, just for you. Because he understands you. He understands what you want. He understands what you need. He wants to make it for you. That's a service, isn't it? So till this very day, he too is still serving. There's many more service, but we can only have time for these few. But Jesus is showing us being a servant never ends. Jesus' servanthood didn't end at the cross. It's eternal. In a world that we live in today, it celebrates power, doesn't it? It's all about power. It's all about prestige. It's all about whatever position that you can gain or whatever position you can be in. And because of that, servants' roles are frequently overlooked. And servants' roles are looked down on. But Jesus tells us in the kingdom of God, service is not second class. It's sacred. He makes that perfectly clear, doesn't he? And our service is actually a platform for a divine purpose. And I'll get to that part in a minute. But there's a well-known scripture that we all want to hear one day. And that's found in Matthew 25, in verse 23. Matthew 25, 23. His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share the master's happiness." Well done, good and faithful servant. That's something that one day we hope to all hear. And we have no excuse because we have the greatest example that we could ever find, couldn't we? If you ought to be like me, then this is how we ought to be. Jesus' role as a servant is not just a moment in history. It's a timeless model of love, continued to inspire and guide us. His servanthood didn't end with his earthly ministry. Jesus also teaches servanthood is not a weakness. It's strength wrapped in humility. It's also an ongoing thing. He tells us in Matthew 20, Let's flip back a little bit to Matthew 20. In verse 26 through 28. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become the greatest among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be the first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Jesus gave us an example. He gives us his word. He left this with us. See, we are the hands and feet of Jesus. I'm not a servant of Pine Prairie Church of Christ. I am a servant of Jesus. I am his hands. I am his feet. And that's how I am to view it. I just happen to be here doing his service. But this is not my service. My service is for the kingdom. Whether it be here, outside, wherever it may be. That's how he wants us to see it. Most of us here may not ever preach from a platform. But I guarantee your voice carries great volume. Louder than I could probably ever preach up here. Just by our action and service. And by sitting here this morning, as I said earlier, every Sunday I see the same faces. Why? Because you're faithful servants. Faithfully you're here. That's what the faithful part means. That you can bet on it that they will be here. There's also growth in servanthood. See, we are the hands and feet. But also the growth. And this is, and I know this has happened to me over the years. That through servanthood I have grown. I have grown in many tremendous ways. God uses servanthood for roles to shape our character. You know where I learned patience? Being a servant. You know where I learned to be humble? Being a servant. You know where I learned how to endure, even when things are hard or tough? Through being a servant. You know where I learned compassion? From being a servant. We're made to serve, and we learn through servanthood. God is using your service to prepare you for something greater. Think about that. When you need to view our servicehood as God taking me and molding me for something much greater than what I'm doing now. Also, there is another example of servanthood that left us a lesson that I want to focus on this morning. We know what Jesus left, and we can refer to that word all the time. Also, there is another example of servanthood that left us a great lesson, and that is found in the book of Job. Job is often remembered for his suffering. Job but today we're going to focus on his servanthood. There's so many lessons we could speak from the book of Job. I mean, we could talk about pain and suffering. We could talk about patience. There's so many different things we could talk about. We could talk about our view of God, and that our service is for him and not to get nothing in return. There's many things we could focus on. So this morning we're going to focus on his servanthood. His unwavering commitment to God despite unmanageable loss. See, many would have walked away. When something like that happens, it's so easy to walk away. But it's not meant for us to walk away. It's meant for us to learn. You see, look what God called him. God called him my servant. He didn't say a servant. He didn't say the servant. He didn't say that servant. He called him my servant. As he looked at him, he's seen him as he is mine. Not because of what Job did, but because of who he is, a man of integrity, humility, and of faith. Let's look at Job chapter 1. Job chapter 1, we'll start at verse 6. One of the most sought after verses. One day the angels came and presented themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, "From roaming throughout the earth and going back and forth in it." Can you imagine what he was doing? Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant?" Singled him out as who? Who's he belong to? Me. Who is he serving? Me. He's not serving the community. He's not serving the people. He's serving me. Have you considered my servant Job? There's no one on earth like him. He is blameless, upright, and a man who fears God and shuns evil. Job is often seen as a model of patience and a model of faithfulness. But serving God faithfully despite severe suffering and loss. How many times do we get frustrated and angry at things, especially when we're serving and want to walk away? I'm going to tell you a story. Before I became minister, many years ago, quite a few years ago, I was a worship leader or deacon, however how you would prove to put it. And I was, my service was in the worship portion. And my job was to fill in when the preacher was gone, because we had two services. My job was usually to preach first service and coordinate communion for second service. And I remember one Sunday, you know how work outside tends to aggravate you, and then I come here, and like I always say, church would be a great place if it wasn't for the people. And as I got there, it just things kind of, I don't, you know how it is, you get aggravated. And I got so mad, and I got so frustrated at my ministry, and I got so aggravated that I threw my clipboard down, and I walked out, I walked down the walkway, I walked to my truck, I got in my truck, I put my hand on the key, and my heart just exploded. And I felt it in my heart. God said, where are you going? What are you doing? This is not about you. You here to coordinate the service to honor and worship me. It's not about you. You let me deal with them. You don't deal with them. You deal with the at hand. I'll deal with them. So I walked back in and I continued my duty. But it was been so easy to walk away with it. We get frustrated, we get angry because sometimes there's things that we don't understand. Look at Job. He did not understand what was going on, but yet he still stayed in loyal service to God. And that's how we should be. When things get hard and things get tough, it's not a time to walk away. It's a time to seek what God wants me to learn. His story shows how true servanthood is to remain devoted even when tested by hardship. We ought to stay faithful even in trials. A servant's duty is to trust God when circumstances are confusing, because the enemy's job is to shut you down. What do you think Satan was doing roaming to and fro the earth? Disrupting ministries. Something that's not his, something that is bringing people to Christ, something that is honoring God, something that is serving God. His job is to shut it down. And whether it's to aggravate you or whatever it is, he will do it. But we can't let that be, because it's not about us. It's not about that. It's being in service to God. Look what he tells us in Job 13. See, we endure because we have hope, trusting that God restores us. Look what Job tells us in chapter 13. This is way past chapter 1. Why do I put myself in jeopardy and take my life in my own hands? Though he slay me, yet I will Though he slay me, yet will I hope where? In him. See, our hope is in him. Servants trust the master's plans even when they don't understand it. Servanthood is about identity. God sees what we're doing. Because he said, have you considered my servant? This is how he is. God sees what we're doing. It's not so much what other people see. It's what God sees. Because, you know, sometimes so many things are done behind the scenes that no one sees. But God sees. You know, and that's what's so amazing. God sees it. You may not see it, but God sees it. You know, I mean, when you look at the disciples, each one of them was given the same ability, wasn't they? Each one was given the same plan. Each one of them was given the same ability. But yet you read about some, but not about others. How many times you read about Bartholomew? You're going to have to struggle to find his name in it, but does it mean he did anything less? No, because he works behind the scenes. It matters what God sees. You see, it's not about painting a picture. Servanthood reflects Christ and is to be Christ-like. God said, have you considered my servant? That identifies him as God's servant. Servanthood is not about status or achievement. It's about being available, and it's about being faithful. Jesus said, the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. Are you willing to serve God when it costs you something? See, that's the true part, is you willing to do it when it costs you something. What sacrifice is involved in your service? I don't like to serve if it costs me something, then it's not a sacrifice, is it? Colossians chapter 3, verse 23. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ. It is the Lord Christ you are what? Serving. It's about Him. It's about our service to Him. Remember that every effort is ultimately for Jesus. Even the most routine task gains essential significance. Working for human praise, not working for human praise, but for honor and the love of God. In the end, what others say or think doesn't affect my glory. Doesn't matter. I learned a long time ago to grow very thick skin. I used to be real thin, but I got some thick skin. Because I've learned it doesn't matter what other people say. That has no effect on my glory. It has no effect on my salvation. Job 1:6, we just read, if that same thing would take place today, I want to actually say this morning, have you considered my servant? Could you put your name in that space? Ask yourself, could you put your name? Could he actually say, have you considered my servant Danny? Have you considered my servant Susan? Have you considered my servant Dave? Could we actually put our name there? Your service is being noticed, not by people, but by God. Reverend Samuel Amririo, I think he puts it most beautifully. When he said, when God mentions your name, things shift. Sometimes it's for promotion, sometimes it's for assistance, sometimes it's for testing, but it's always for His glory. It's not about perfection, it's not about being upright in heart. Would you want God to mention your name like He did Job? What would that mean for you right now? Also, God protects His servants, doesn't He? Satan, He said, have you considered? He said, well, I can't get to it. You won't let me. Why? God protects His servants, though. Because if we're in service to God, I know He wants to see to it that we do. We may go through a testing. We may go through a growth. And that's never easy. But it's for His glory. Every time. So this morning, if we have a need, any need at all, and we need prayer, you can come. We can lay hands on you and pray for you. If you need baptism, the waters can be made ready. Whatever our need may be, you can make it known as we stand and sing.